I don't review bad movies on this channel. That being said, this film is garbage. The question is then, why am I reviewing it? Because every single review that I do on this channel ends up with me recommending seeing the movie. And that's the case here as well. I would recommend that if you see this movie cheap, or have the opportunity to borrow it or at least see it at a friend's house, to do so. But there's a very specific reason why, and it's not because this is a good film. I am a big fan of clever ideas. Now, if those ideas aren't necessarily carried out in the best way, that doesn't affect my appreciation of a good idea. A good idea done wrong can put people off, but that's still a good idea. And to me, this film has a good idea. The concept behind the film is a very interesting one. It has elements which are similar to really good movies, but done in just enough of a different way to make it justifiable that this film exists. Now, that being said, and without spoiling anything, I cannot go into what I mean by that any further, but that being said, this is a rubbish film. It's one of the worst movies I've ever seen in terms of acting, and it's not because the actors are bad actors. There are some who you've probably seen before, and I'm sure each and every one of them has done better work elsewhere. It's just that they're given nothing to work with. Now, this movie was released in 2010 as a straight-to-DVD kind of movie, and it's not hard to see why. It's a TV kind of quality in terms of the people involved, the visuals, the audio, etc. It's not the worst I've seen, but definitely nowhere near the best. And the concept, again, without spoiling anything, revolves around a group of young people who go on a relatively short, or intended to be short, flight on a small aeroplane. And the concept basically takes that situation and turns it into a pressure cooker, where they turn on each other, they question each other, kind of like movies such as 12 Angry Men or The Thing, but in an aeroplane. Now, to even put this film on the same conversation as those movies is ridiculous, but I have to do it because that's the nearest comparison I can make. Now, the concept of the film makes it worth watching as far as I'm concerned. I'm surprised that I made it through this film because the people are so stupid in it. They make ridiculous decisions, they say things that make no sense at all. But, that being said, I did manage to stick through till the end, and I'm glad that I did. Because the way the film starts and the way the film ends in particular, with some important points in between, is actually really cool. The concept of this movie has so much potential. This is a movie which, with the right director, the right actors definitely, and most definitely the right script writer, could have been brilliant. This could have been a Babadook, a The Thing, a whatever you want to say in the horror/thriller category that's revered. This really does have that kind of potential, and that's hard to believe, especially if you've watched the film before but not completed it, because it really does insult your intelligence sometimes. That being said, now let's go to my individual reviews. First of all, we have the story and plot, and perhaps surprisingly, I'm going to give it a 7, because although it's carried out in a ridiculous way, the conceptual seed lying within this story is really good. So I'm giving it a 7 out of 10 in that regard, mainly for potential rather than what it actually achieved. As far as the people in the film, the characters, their motivations, well, I'm giving it a 2. And that's being generous, because these are some of the worst characters I've ever seen. The only reason why I'm giving it a 2 is because 1 or 2 of them are passable. But other than that, they're worthless and stupid. As far as the visuals and effects, I'm going to give it a 5, and 5 isn't particularly good or bad, that's just a baseline. That's pass territory. And the reason why I would give it that 5 is because the special effects are okay. They're what you'd expect from a movie like this, perhaps a tad better. Not amazing, certainly not awful. As far as the audio, the soundtrack, etc. in general, again, I'm giving it a 5 for the exact same reason. It does what it needs to do, nothing special at all, but at the same time, it's not offensive, it's just not surprising. And finally, for the rewatchability and entertainment, I'm going to give it a 4, so just below an average score. And the reason why it's just below is because the characters really hurt the film, but the concept makes it justified in watching at least once. Now, if you do watch this once, you'll probably only watch it once, as I plan to. But I would still recommend checking it out that one time, just so you can appreciate what I mean by how cool this film could have been. Go into this movie thinking of it not as a movie, but imagine this as being a sales pitch, or a trailer, if you will, of something that can be much better in the future if somebody else takes up the project and remakes it, because I hope somebody does that. This film could have been brilliant. Now, overall, that means that this does have the lowest score to date on the channel of 2.3 out of 5, and that's completely justified. It's not a good film. But, as I said before, I would recommend checking this film out at least once. Don't pay big money for it, or go out of your way driving miles and miles to pick up a copy, but if you get the chance to, check it out once. But that's it overall for this particular review, and if you have already seen this movie, I'd love to hear the thoughts of others on it, because films like this can sometimes be divisive. They can sometimes have kind of cult followings as well. So, tell me all about that down below if you have seen the movie, but for now, as always, thanks for watching.